Hello, welcome to the Unit 1 Study Guide for Math 8. I want to remind you, since this is a video, you always have the opportunity of pausing or rewinding. Yes, I understand that you want to just get through the video and not have to worry about it, but if you want to successfully prepare for your test that is tomorrow, you will rewind if you don't understand. You can go back to notes on your Google Calendar, and it would be preferable if you were able to watch this video again tonight. Okay, classify each number as rational or irrational. Let me point out to you that we have numbers right in here that we are classifying as rational or irrational. You will be putting them into the circles. Now remember, rational numbers can be written as a fraction. Irrational numbers cannot be written as a fraction. So let's look at the first decimal we have. It is repeating. And this is part of your test. You do know how to write that as a repeating or as a fraction, so let's put it as a rational number, cross it out because we used it. 13 over 2 is already in fraction form, so you can be assured that it is rational. In fact, it's called an improper fraction. Well, then there's the pi symbol. If you know anything about pi, it is a non-terminating decimal that never repeats. So it is going to go over to the irrational side. Cross it out because we used it. Then we have the square root of 50. Well, if you think about it, what times itself is 50? Well, you don't have anything. It's not a perfect square. The closest perfect square is 49. So we're going to have to put the square root of 50 as irrational. Cross it off because we used it. This negative 2 can be written as a fraction. Remember, you can stick it over 1. So I'm going to go ahead and put negative 2 as rational. Finally, we have the square root of 25. If you think about it, what times itself is 25? Well, that's 5. And 5 can be written as a fraction. Stick it over 1. So, thus, the square root of 25 is rational. Next part, we are going to round to the given place value. The first one says you're going to round to the tenths position. Well, the 5 happens to be in the tenths position. You look behind the 5. Well, that's a 4. So we don't have enough to shove it up to 6. So you're going to rewrite it as 19.5. And you're going to drop the rest. You can write them as zeros, but really you don't need to because it's behind the decimal point, so it's not going to change the value of that 5. The next question asks you to round to the hundredths position. Well, the 9 is in the tenths, so the 7 is in the hundredths. You look behind that 7, there's another 7. 5 or above, give it a shove. 4 or below, let it go. Well, that 7 is more than 5. The 7 behind the 7. So you're going to write 20.9. You can look at a decimal there. A funky looking decimal there. And that 7 is now an 8. You have done your rounding. What we are going to do next is we're going to convert each of the following. Again, if I am moving too fast, you can always pause because the name of the game here is if I am writing it on my study guide, you should be writing it on yours. Okay. Decimal into a fraction in simplest form. All you have to do is read that decimal. When you read that decimal, it's 44 hundredths. So you're going to write 44 over 100. Now that's part of what you want to do. Great. It's a fraction. But we want to write that fraction in simplest form. This is where you can grab your handy calculator, turn it on, find the ND button, which is numerator and denominator. Type in 44 hundredths, push in enter, and write down what you got. 44 hundredths in simplest form is 11/25. Let's make sure that you do that tomorrow. Next, we're going to change our decimal into a fraction in simplest form again. Well, this looks like one of those repeating decimals. We're going to write it so it's easier to read. 0.98 with a line over the 98. That is 98 hundredths. I agree. But that is 98 hundredths if it was a terminating decimal. If it stopped, which it does not. Reflect a minute. What do you have to do to account for the fact it repeats? Let's subtract that 1. So now it is 98 over 99. In a testing situation, I would be the person who would want to make sure I was correct. What does the fraction bar tell you to do? To divide. So in your calculator, take 98 divided by 99. Hit enter. Looks like the original number we had, with the exception your calculator rounds it because it doesn't hold all of the numbers. Last question of this section. We are going to change a fraction into a decimal. You have 14/20. Remember, your fraction bar means for you to divide. You're going to take your numerator, which is 14, divided by your denominator, which is 20. Put that in your calculator, and you get 0.7. Next direction, we're going to order the following numbers from least to greatest. When you check these numbers out, you can see none of them are square roots. None of them are going to be irrational, but they're all in kind of a different form. So as we discussed, if they're in a different form, the best way to deal with them is to change to decimals. Okay, so 2/5. All you have to do to that is take your calculator in your hand and divide. Take 2 divided by 5, and you get 4/10. Excellent. -1 is already -1. Then we have 8/5. We need to change it to a decimal. do the same thing that you did with this one right here. You divide it. So you'll take 8 divided by 5. Put that in your calculator. You get 1.6, or 1 6/10. The last one is already 0.02, or 2/100. So now what we want to do is order them from least to greatest using the original number. So these up here are the numbers we want to use, but these down here are the things that are going to guide us. So the negative number is going to be the one that has the least value because it's going to be the furthest to the left in the number line. I'm going to cross it out because I already used it. The next least number, if I happened to look at this number right here and this number right there, they don't even have a whole number with them. Now, if I compare this number to this number, 0 is smaller. So our next number is 0 2/100. I would say that 4/10 is next, but really 4/10 is not my original number, it is 2/5. So I'm going to write down 2/5, cross it out, and that leaves us with the 1 6/10 that is really 8 5/10. Before I go on to the next page, I just want to make it clear, if you don't understand something, you can go back to the Google Calendar. All of the notes are on Google Calendar for you to review. You may also rewind this video or raise your hand if you're really stuck and I can help you. A question. A very serious question. How do you make a tissue dance? Well, you make a tissue dance by putting a little boogie in it. Get it? Here's another one. What gets wetter the more it dries? A towel. It dries you off, so it gets wetter. That one's a good one, too. Finally, why can't you give Elsa a balloon? Because she'll let it go. Okay, thanks for putting up with that. We want you to our next set of questions, so go ahead and turn your paper to the back. It says, estimate the square root to the nearest whole number. Our first one that we have is right here. What might be helpful right now is to write down your perfect squares. I will quickly go through them. They are 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, and 100. If you want to make sure, you need to count them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them. I will not have them on the board for your test. The easiest way to think of these is just thinking about 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, and so on. Okay, it says, estimate the square root to the nearest whole number. Obviously, 78 is not a perfect square. It is between 64 and 81. And you have to think of your question, How far apart are they? Well, it is 14 away from 64. It is only 3 away from 81. So the square root of 78 is close to 9. Now, confusion from yesterday's lesson, it is not 9 point something. Really, it's going to be 8 point something. It's going to be somewhere between 8 and 9, but closer to 9. Next, you have the square root of 19. Check out your perfect squares. It looks like 19 would fit in between 16 and 25. Think about your distance. It's 3 away from 16 and 6 away from 25. So that means the square root of 19 is going to be very close to the square root of 16, which is 4, because 4 times 4 gives you 16. Now, I shifted my paper up, but you should have your perfect squares all listed at the top of your paper to help you out with this. We are looking for the square root of 30. Think about what your perfect squares are between 25 and 36. So your number line is going to be the square root of 25, which is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25. The square root of 36 is 6, because 6 times 6 is 36. Smack dab in the middle would be 5.5. Okay. So we have kind of put some things on our line. We know that we need to figure out what the square root of 30 is closest to. If you took 30 minus 25, you would get 5. So it's only 5 away. If you took 30 and you subtracted it with 36, you would get 6. I mean, it's almost smack dab in the middle, but it's not 5.5 and 5.5. It's 5 and 6. So it is closer to the square root of 25, which is 5, than it would be to the other. I would put it right about there. So the square root of 30 is going to be less than 5.5, but greater than 5. Now let's try the square root of 52. Think about your perfect squares that it is in between. Go back up to the top and look at the numbers that 52 is between. 49 and 64. We know the square root of 49 is 7. The square root of 64 is 8. Let's put 7.5 in the middle. Okay, same situation. We're trying to figure out the distance between 52 and 49. In 52 and 64. If you take 52 minus 49, you would get 3 away. Put in your calculator 64 minus 52, 12 away. It is very clear that the square root of 54 is going to be closer to the square root of 49, which is 7. We are not going to put our point on 7, though, because we're still 3 away, but we're pretty darn close. We're right about there. Last part, don't freak out on me. You're still with me. If we finish this one, I'll find one more joke for you. Okay, we need to order these numbers from least to greatest. And again, Mrs. Reynolds is tricky, so they're not in the same form. So let's all write them as decimals. So the very first one, I have 163 over 17. Well, as you may recall, when you have that, you can change it by dividing. So in your calculator, you would take 163 divided by 17. So this is 9.6. Well, then you have this whole situation of the square root of 98. I don't have a lot of room to work right here, so I'm going to take this and work down in this little area over here. Square root of 98. Think about what two perfect squares it's between. 81 and 100. Think about how far apart they are from each other. It's pretty clear that this is only 2 away. It's way more away from your 81. So don't even mess with it. Just know that the square root of 81 is 9, the square root of 100 is 10. So your square root of 98 is going to be somewhere between those two numbers. Here is where we panicked yesterday. We're just trying to order these numbers on the number line from least to greatest. We're going to try to find our closest decimal, just as long as your ballpark. If it's only 2 away, the square root of 98 is certainly going to be 9 point something. It's only 2 away. 9.8 or 9.9, I think, would be a very good guess. I'm going to say 9. If you said 9.8 on your test, I wouldn't count you wrong. Those are very, very close. So square root of 98, going back up to the numbers, I would say is about 9.9, which right now, that's okay. This is 9.6, this is 9.9. Even if you put this as 9.8, we know it's still more than that. And it's certainly still more than 9.42 repeating. Now let's think about this last one. Again, I don't have a whole lot of room, so I'm going to put it down here. Square root of 85. Think about what it's between 81 and 100. It's only 4 away. It's only 4 away from 81. It's 15 away from 100. So the square root of 81 is 9. Square root of 100 is 10. It's going to be somewhere in there. I would say the square root of 85 is about. Now, again, don't get hung up on exactly. I'm talking ballpark here. Now, check out our numbers we have. We have 9.6, 9.9, and 9.42. What I think is important is understanding if this number is smaller than any of those numbers. I know it's going to be 9 point something. If it's only 4 away, 9.5 would be too big. I think 9.4 would be too big. So if you said 9.1, 9.2, I think you would be in a good spot. Because when you go back up and write it, that lets you know that that is the least of your numbers. And really, I want to know what the least of your numbers is. So let's go back. This is going to be 9, and this is going to be 10. Because all of those numbers are between 9 and 10. This is your 9.5. Let's do this. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is your 5. 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we'll just go through and place them appropriately. 163/17 is 9.6. So you would put that right here. 163/17. We said the square root of 98 is about 9.9. So we'll put it right there. Again, if I'm going too fast, it would be a great idea for you to pause it so you can get this all written down. Next up, we have 9.42 repeating. So I can't put it right on the 4. I'm going to put it right next to it. 9.42. Make sure that's, yeah, that repeating. And finally, we have the square root of 85, which we know is going to be somewhere around here. If you get it around here, then you have appropriately ordered it from least to greatest. Don't be too picky if it's 9.1 or 9.2 or even 9.3. If it's the lowest number, which I was supposed to do in blue, then you have clearly ordered those from the least to the greatest, and you'll get all of your points. Okay, I promised you one last joke. All right, here it is. Why are pirates called pirates? Because they are. Okay, thanks for suffering through this. Please watch this again tonight. Try it on a blank piece of paper. Don't just do this in class and think that you're done. You need good practice. Good luck.